All right, election fans. Tonight we are tracking results of two key races. In Georgia's special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene, Trump-backed Republican Clayton Fuller and Democrat Sean Harris are now headed to a runoff April 7th after no candidate won a majority. Remember, Greene resigned from her seat in January after a public falling out with the president. When down in Mississippi, Democratic Representative Benny Thompson defeated a younger primary challenger in his reelection bid. The congressman has represented his district for more than 30 years. My dear friend and partner, Ali Velshi, is at the big board to break it all down. Let's start with Georgia. There was a lot of Republicans running.
A lot of Republicans. There are 11 Republicans in the race. In the South, in Georgia and everywhere else in the South, you have to get 50% or more to win. Nobody got 50%, so the top two candidates are going to a runoff. But it's interesting math here. The leading vote-getter tonight was the former Brigadier General Sean Harris. He ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene. The last time around got about 35% of the vote, so he's outperformed himself a little bit now by 37. He's got 37.33% of the vote. There were two other Democrats in the race, so add a couple percentage points to that. Democrats have outperformed in this district. The Republican who is going ahead is Clayton Fuller. He's Trump endorsed, but he's actually not as Trumpy as the third guy, Colton Moore. But if you add all these 11 up, they're going to get to about 60% of the vote. Apparently, if you assume everybody sticks to the way they voted this time around, your election's probably going to be about 60-40 of a Republican to a Democrat, so it probably doesn't flip the seat, but pretty strong performance by Sean Harris, again, a retired brigadier general. He performed very well in areas of this district that are close to Atlanta. So you see all these counties around Atlanta. These are typically blue counties. Cobb County is just to the west of that. Again, it's considered a part of Atlanta. So, he did very well here, but he also did well in the northern parts of the state near Tennessee. So that was an interesting development in Georgia. Let me just show you, Stephanie, what Georgia's going to look like. Today was a special election. It is a special election. This is not a primary. So this person who wins this election will go on to fill the rest of Marjorie Taylor Greene's term, which ends at the end of this year. But they're going to a runoff on April 7th. So this district will vote again on April 7th. The rest of Georgia has a primary on May 19th. And again, you have to get 50%. So if you don't do that, they'll vote again on June 16th. That's the runoff. Then everybody votes on November 3rd. But it's still not finished in Georgia, because if you don't get 50% on November 3rd, you end up on another runoff on December 1st. So it's potentially, there are some Georgia voters who are actually going to vote 6 times in this particular race.
Hold on. How long is it going to take before Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, like practically speaking, is filled?
April 7th. That night will be decided, because the two front runners go in, and that will be the determination. So that person will be in the seat from April 7th till the end. Now, it remains to be seen what happens in the primary, which is in May, but that's for the next congressional term that gets voted on in November.
Can you tell us anything about the direction the party is headed in based on any results we saw tonight?
Well, I would say this. Sean Harris outperformed himself, but when you look at some of the special elections we've seen, particularly in the South, in Tennessee and Texas, Democrats have been ahead in some cases, or they flipped it by 15 or 17 points. Sean Harris is about 4 points ahead of where he was. So this is not a big flip. But I will remind you, this is the northwest part of Georgia. This is perhaps some of the most conservative, Trumpy parts of the country. When Marjorie Taylor Greene first ran, she didn't even have a Democratic opponent. So there's movement. It shows you some swing, but not much swing. The question is, how much swing are you going to get in a place like northwestern Georgia?
What can you tell us about Mississippi?
Mississippi had a primary tonight as well. The only one that we were really looking at is the second district. This is Benny Thompson's district. He has won pretty decisively. 85% of the vote is in, and he has 86% of it. There was some thinking that his challenger, Evan Turnage, would pose that sort of generational question about sort of an older incumbent versus a newer person, but that didn't end up working. Benny Thompson has remarkable strength in Congress and in his district, so he will be returning as the candidate for the elections in Mississippi's second district. No other changes anywhere else. The third district was uncontested. There were again, the expected victories in the other two districts, so no big takeaways from Mississippi tonight, except that Benny Thompson is safe.
Here's my big takeaway. MS Now is lucky to have Ali Velshi at the big board. And you know what you can do tomorrow? Tomorrow, you can see Ali Velshi and I again. Our live stream is back. It's happening with Velshi and Rule. Make sure to send us your video questions. Remember, it's an hour of your questions and our best answers. Send your questions to Velshi Rule at msnow.com. and we're going to answer them. Just scan the QR code on your screen. You can watch us on YouTube. It starts at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. But before we go to break, there's one thing I want to make sure you guys are up to speed on. Okay. President Trump has told Republicans that passing their voter ID law, the SAVE Act, you've heard all about it, the SAVE Act, would guarantee the midterms. Not only that, but he is pushing for an even stricter version that is making its way through Congress. I want you to watch this.
What I've asked Mike to do is to draw a new one with these few things added, and let's go for the gold. Let's not just get one like voter ID. So those five things, voter ID, citizenship, mail-in ballots, no mail-in ballots, right? We don't want men playing in women's sports, and no transgender mutilation of our children. I'm willing to just sort of say I'm not going to sign anything until this is approved.
Okay, so the SAVE Act. The president says he will not sign any other legislation until this passes. So I want to talk to you about what it would actually mean. Under the current proposal, to vote, you would need to show valid photo ID. To register, you would need to show proof of citizenship, like a passport or a birth certificate. Republicans make that sound like it's not a big deal. But here's the issue. The Brennan Center estimates that 21 million eligible voters do not have these documents readily available, and at least 3.8 million do not have access to them at all. As of 2023, 50% of eligible voters don't have a passport. Getting one costs anywhere between $65 and $200. But more importantly, you should not need to have to pay any money to exercise a constitutional right. That is what voting is. The Brennan Center also found millions of Americans don't have access to their birth certificate. And if you're a married woman who changed her name, that's me, that birth certificate, if you can find it, it will not help you. Just to put a finer point on this situation, this is a solution in search of a problem. It is already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections, and confirmed instances of voter fraud are extremely, extremely rare. I thought you should know.